Now I request Shaheed Lahku Luhana to say something about Balaach and a sketch up about his life. Shaheed Lahku Luhana.
Dear Baloch and Sindhi friends, we have gathered here today to remember. Remember people who were born in centuries. Remember a person whose departure from us will keep the flame of humanity, of freedom, of love for our motherland always alive. Freedom never comes free. But the history, there are people who make the history. Balaach made the history. I said once that whosoever is born will die. That's the universal truth. But there are people, there are only few people, probably 1 in millions, who are capable to defy that universal truth. They defy the death. They never die. And Balaach will never die. Basically, this is the sketch on the life of Balaach, the social, personal background which made Balaach what Balaach was and what Balaach did. Balaach was born on 17th January 1966. And this sketch became necessary because it's always to remind and to remember. And probably it will leave us some lessons to learn, not to rise to the level the Balaach reached, but at least to rise to the challenge that at any given space and time, history places in before of us and in before of our conscience. He is the 4th among 6 sons of Shaheed Balaach Marri. He was named after the great 15th century Baloch hero Balaach of Chakre Zamira. It was the last days of military dictator Ayub Khan, and genuine Baloch leadership was under a lot of intimidation. He started his primary education at Quetta Grammar School. He was only 6 in 1972 when the government of Saint Atullah Mangal was removed forcibly at the instigation of military. The entire area around Shaheed Balaach's house in Quetta was surrounded by military, and Balaach witnessed his father being arrested at the hands of army. The encirclement of the house continued for many months after the arrest. Baloch people started a resistance struggle against the atrocities and crimes of Pakistani army brought upon Baloch people and arrest of their beloved leadership. He remembers these days when many wounded, some near to death, Baloch men, women and children used to come to hide in their house. This was one of the worst periods in Baloch history. This was the time when Chamling massacre took place. Thousands of Baloch people were forced out of their homes and were moved to ghettos in Multan and Dera Ghazi Khan. The military used to take many Baloch people in helicopters and threw them from heights to die. During this period, more than 50,000 Baloch men, women and children 50,000 Baloch men, women and children were killed, and that equated to 1% of the population of that Balochistan. 1%. Growing Balaach had the first-hand experience of the Baloch suffering and used to hear these stories from his elder brothers and other relatives. Shaheed Balaach was in prison for next 7 years. Balaach was only able to see his father a couple of times during this period. When Shaheed Balaach was released in 1979, Balaach entered his secondary education. In 1980, Shaheed Balaach, along with his family and thousands of Baloch people, moved to Afghanistan. Balaach continued and finished his secondary education in Afghanistan. Balaach was an extraordinary student. He excelled in all his studies. He was a keen student who really loved his school and his studies. This was the period when Balaach started to learn and understand